Hi, I'm Christian. Welcome back to another On the Road video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com. Stop. Before beginning any repair, always be sure to disconnect the power to the appliance. It is also recommended to test the outlet for proper voltage. Today we're working on a Whirlpool over-the-range microwave. The customer's complaint is that sometimes it's heating, and also whenever they close the door or open the door, the actual lights does not come on right away. There is a delay there. So we've already diagnosed that the problem is in the primary and secondary switches, so we're going to be replacing those today. The tools you would need to complete this repair are a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, a small flat blade screwdriver, a pair of needle nose pliers, and a T10 driver. To begin the repair, we first must remove the grill. There are two number 2 Phillips screws that hold the grill in at the left and right sides. We're going to be removing them both. Once the screws have been removed, we can go ahead and lift out and up on the grill and set it aside. Next, we need to remove the wrap. To do so, originally this is going to be installed above a range. It does have to be uninstalled from that position and set down in a workable position so you can get to all the screws. So to begin, we're going to be removing the 9 screws on the very back. These screws are all number 2 Phillips. We can now remove the screws on the top, and there are several. We're going to begin by removing the ones that hold the actual blower fan bracket on. And there's 2 on this one. Once the 2 screws have been removed, we can lift up on the top side of the bracket here and then slide it out from the 2 clips in the back. We'll set this aside. Be careful when you're handling any metal here. Some of the metal is very sharp. So once all the screws have been removed from the back and the top of the appliance, there were several screws underneath the actual microwave that actually secure the bottom of the wrap on the microwave. So we're gonna return it to the front position and then flip it over on its back. We're now going to remove the 8 Phillips screws that secure the wrap on the bottom. They go down the left side and the right side. So it's just the 4 on the side. So once all the screws have been removed, we can now set the microwave in the upright position so we can remove the wrap. Now that the appliance is in the upright position, to finish removing the wrap, we're going to go on each side and pull out from the back and then push out, or just pull out, I should say, from the front. There are some clips on each side that the front of the wrap actually gets tucked into the actual chassis. Just like that. Then we can go ahead and lift up on the wrap while fishing the actual power cord here through the opening. So be careful when you do so. Like I said, some of the metal is pretty sharp. So once that's fished through, we'll grab the wrap and then set the wrap aside. We're going to be replacing the primary and secondary interlock switches. To do this repair, you don't have to have the unit uninstalled or have the wrap taken off. We have done both just for filming purposes. So to begin the repair, we're first going to open the microwave door and then remove the one screw that secures the control panel in place. Once that screw's been removed, we can go ahead and lift up gently on the control panel and then let it relax just like this. The next step is to, we'll do the top switch first. The primary switch is the top left switch. To remove the actual interlock assembly with the switches, we do have to flex back the cam here. So we're just gonna push it directly back. Next, we can remove the T10 screw that secures the actual interlock in place. We can now take a hold of the whole interlock assembly, lift up, and then just fish it out of the opening here on the side. It looks like some of the screws aren't long enough, so I'm gonna push it back in and then just remove it from the inside. So now that this is free, the primary micro switch is the switch with the 3 terminals here. So to remove that, we do have to flex the spring off. Just like that. Remove the actual cam by pulling it, lining it up with the hole here and then pulling it straight off. And then to remove the switch, there are 2 locking tabs that secure the switch in place. We're just gonna flex these carefully back by lift and at the same time lift up on the switch. So this can be a little difficult. We wanna be very careful when doing this because we don't wanna break these 2 tabs or else the interlock will have to be replaced. So once that's been removed, we can now remove the 3 terminals or the 3 wires that connect to the switch itself. These terminals do have locking tabs. We do have to push down the locking tab before removing the actual wire. Take note on where the actual wires go on the actual switch. Now we'll remove the whole switch. Now we're installing our new primary switch. So to install the switch, the first thing we're gonna do is reconnect the wires that go to the switch. So we're just gonna line them up here and then push them directly on. Once the wires have been installed onto the switch, we can now install the switch onto the interlock. So we want to make sure that the plunger is facing down on the interlock. So once you've lined it up, we're going to line it up with the 2 tabs here and the 2 mounting pins. And once it's lined up, we'll push it directly on the interlock. Just like that. We can now reinstall the cam. We're gonna line up the cam here and push it directly on, and then the spring that goes onto the cam. So one end of the spring, the straight end of the spring pushes onto the interlock, and then the curved part gets installed into the opening on the interlock. Just like that. We can now reinstall the interlock assembly onto the frame. So we're just gonna line it up here. Once it's lined up, we can go ahead and flex that cam back into its original position. This will hold the interlock in place, and we can secure that interlock with the T20 screw we removed earlier. Now these screws are not magnetic, so make sure you have a good hold of the screw when you're installing it or securing it. We'll now replace the secondary micro switch, which is on the bottom. So it's the same exact order. We're gonna flex the cam in the backward position. Now that the cam's been flipped backwards, we can now remove the T10 screw that secures the interlock onto the chassis. Once the screw's been removed, we can go ahead and push down on the interlock. And then, let's see if this one, oh, we'll push it backwards and come from the inside here. So the same thing we're gonna do here is remove the spring, then the cam. Next the cam. Now we'll go ahead and flex these tabs back carefully and remove the switch. The wires on this switch also have locking tabs that we have to depress in and then remove. We'll set the old switch aside. Now that we have our new secondary switch, let's install it. To begin the installation, the first thing we're gonna do is plug in both of these wires that go to the switch. It doesn't matter what wire goes where on this switch because they're just completing a circuit. So line them up and push them directly on. So now we can go ahead and install the switch onto the interlock. We're gonna face the switch towards the inside of the cam. We'll push it directly on, just like that. Now we can reinstall the cam here. We're gonna line it up. Push it on, and then reinstall the actual spring. So one end goes on the cam, the other end goes on the interlock. And this is what creates the tension for the interlock assembly. So now that that's lined up, we'll go ahead and reinstall the interlock to the actual chassis. We're gonna line up the interlock, slide it up once it's locked in. Once it's, we're gonna slide it up, and once the actual interlock's in place, and then flex the actual cam back to its original position by pushing down. This will lock the interlock onto the chassis. We can now re-secure the interlock with the T10 screw we removed earlier. We can now reinstall the actual control panel by lining up these hooks here on the side and sliding it straight down. Once that's done, we can now re-secure the actual control panel with the number 2 Phillips screw we removed earlier. We can now reinstall the wrap. We're going to fish the actual power cord through the opening for the blower motor. We're just gonna put it through and put the shell on the unit here. And once we're trying to line up the actual shell, there are tabs inside the actual sides on the left and right side that get tucked in to the control panel area and then the left chassis of the unit. So we're just tugging them in before we install the screws. Once they are fully seated, if you pull on the shell, you won't be able to pull that part out and it won't be loose and it'll be nice and flush. So just like that. So now we'll go ahead and turn the unit around and start installing the screws. Next, we can install the 9 number 2 Phillips screws on the rear of the appliance. Once the 9 screws have been fastened, we can now reinstall the cover for the actual blower motor. So we're just gonna put these 2 tabs inside the actual slots, and then we're gonna pivot the back side towards the top of the wrap. And then we can secure the top side with the 2 number 2 Phillips screws that we removed earlier. The next step is to secure the top of the actual wrap with the 6 beveled screws, and these are number 2 Phillips as well. So they're gonna be the longer beveled screws, and these go across the top. Next step is to gain access to the actual bottom of the appliance so we can secure the actual bottom of the wrap to the bottom of the appliance or the chassis. Now we can install the 8 remaining screws on the bottom of the actual appliance. There's going to be 4 on the left side and 4 on the right side, and they are all number 2 Phillips. Now we can tip the appliance upright and install the grill. We're going to light up the grill. Once the grill's been lined up, we can go ahead and secure the grill with the 2 number 2 Phillips screws we removed earlier. Now with the grill installed, this will complete your repair. Thank you for watching another quality in-home repair video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com.